Welcome to Accounting Year YouTube channel.
All right.
So I have a question, Dele.
Yeah, okay. Judy, what do you want to say?
Yeah, my question is for Chukwemeka.
Okay.
So it's two questions. One is with regarding the ESG. Now, how is that different from environmental reporting? Because, like you said, it has been a trend that has been on for some time, but not too long. And how is that different from environmental reporting that shareholders are beginning to pick an interest in? That's number one. Then number two is still to recruitment and then salary. So sometimes nowadays, I'm sure we have experienced it that companies outsource their recruitment to recruitment agencies and they don't do the recruitment directly. So from my experience, I have noticed that some recruitment agencies and some companies don't give these agents adequate or complete information. So they can't give or properly inform the candidates. So in that case, what do you then do and how do you handle? Say, for instance, they didn't communicate to the recruiter how much is on the table for whatever reasons, and you are in an interview. So how do you handle that? Yeah, that's all from me.
Okay. Emeka?
Okay, GD. I'll try to answer as much as possible. Yes, for ESG, the first question. Usually, before now, the focus has been on environmental issues, especially for manufacturing industries. Yeah, for financial services, not so much. While that is important, the core of what ESG speaks to is about sustainability. So, for the organization and for the environment, especially when you have shareholders and stakeholders, but shareholders not especially when you have Europeans and people that are of not African descent. That's not to say Africans are not beginning to become interested in these things. So when you mention all the three elements, so there's the environmental part, which obviously we all know. So how does your organization or operations impact the environment, and what have you put in place to control some of these things? So if, for example, you discharge wastewater, before discharging the wastewater, what have you done internally to make sure it does not pollute the community you are discharging it into? All of those things around, what are you doing? What are your contributions about climate change, etc., etc. For social, it is becoming very, very important. I will dwell a little on this. In organizations, manufacturing again, although financial services are becoming included in these things, the fair treatment of employees is a critical issue right now for the world. So we have audits that speaks to only this thing. You want to know how much the average employee gets and how much a director gets. And then there's usually a comparison, a ratio to see how far from director's salary is employee salary. It just shows how fairly you treat your people. And if organizations that have outsourced employees, so it's what we call contractor labor. Bank has these people in front of their tellers. I think most of the tellers in banking are usually outsourced. But manufacturing, you also have people work on the production floor. Even if you must do this, you also have to treat them fairly. So for Nigeria, we have what we call minimum wage. So do these people earn at least the minimum wage? But again, the audit is looking beyond this. There's what you now call fair wage. 30,000 naira could be our minimum wage in Nigeria, but is it fair for an employee, especially when they are married with children, to live on 30,000 naira? So you want to understand and communicate to your stakeholders that you are fairly treating your organization. And beyond salary, what benefits do they have in the organization? Is there health insurance? Do they go on paid vacation? The minimum required for the labor law has to be established in your organization. But going beyond labor law, because we now live in a global village, people are using the ILO standard because our labor law in Nigeria is still very not there. It needs to be reviewed. So they're talking about 30,000 naira. They're talking about 3 months maternity leave. You see organizations, they're going beyond that. So they're doing fair wages. People are now doing 4 months maternity leave. It doesn't consume their annual leave. People are going further to provide crèche for nursing mothers so that when they return from their maternity leave, they can have a smooth transition back to work because they're always thinking of their babies and everything. But if they have a crèche just behind the building and their babies are there, they can be rest assured that their babies are in safe hands and then they can give their best at work. So it's good for the organization. It's good for the shareholders to know. And then you also talk about governance. the organization we're talking about had a fraud issue in the past. Largely, this speaks to corporate governance. What things or what measures have you put in place to make sure that your employees and leadership do what is right every time? For many organizations, you have your code of conduct, standard of ethics, you have your whistleblowing policy. You should make sure you have put measures in place to show that you are a responsible organization rather, to your employees, to your shareholders, and in the community where you relate. So these are non-financial KPIs that really speak to whether the company will be a going concern in the near future, what your impact is on the environment you operate, how you fairly fit your employees. There's so much talk about CSR. Even banks are doing it. Every day they come to mention GT Bank, you see GT Fashion Week. We have how many fashion. These are those things to show shareholders and people that we are doing the right thing concerning our employees, where we operate, and as an organization globally. Yeah. In a nutshell, yeah. Okay, that's not a nutshell anymore. In summary, that's what. Yes.
You spoken well. I think I need to go and research ESG. I've seen it, but I think I've been undermining it. But I think right now it's good you brought it into our notice.
And then when you do these things as an organization, you need to shout it.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, there are some people that have loose cash and they're looking for where to invest it. Beyond profit, people are looking at social good. Now, I have money. Okay, I may not have so much money, but sometimes I make a decision based on what I've seen an organization do. I've told my mom not to buy a product, for example, because I think they unfairly treat their employees in that organization. Tomorrow I may be a Bill Gates and I have money I want to invest somewhere. And I will not invest if I think your ESG or your social communication, the way you treat your employees, are unfair. So people have money, especially the white guys, the rich guys. They're not looking to make more money. They're just looking for better good of the society. So you want to position your organization in such a place that you can get some of this investment from this investor.
All right. So, any other questions? Anybody have a question? Any other question again?
I think Fadi Kemi is raising her hand.
Fadi Kemi, you can talk. The floor is open for you. You're on mute, so in case you're trying to say something, we can't hear you. Hello, Fadi Kemi. If you can hear us, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Fadi Kemi.
Good afternoon, Oladile.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I'm just joining. I think I missed your discussion.
Oh, okay. All right, no problem. So, like I said, on the YouTube channel, the video will be available so that those who missed it could actually just rewatch it and they won't spare time. All right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions?
If it's fine, I could just give a summary of what I thought about the interview with Bolu.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine, Emeka. Depending when we hear from another person.
Okay, Bolu.
So, Bolu, here's your feedback.
Bolu, I think you did great. Okay, this is a both personal and professional feedback, if I may say. So I think you did very well, very well. Your confidence level was fine. Your communication, good, but I think it can be better. So usually they say we should do sandwich approach, give all the good things first and then give areas for improvement. So that being said, I thought your introduction was brief, very brief if you ask me. While your introduction should not be too long and doesn't bore your panelist, it's very important you sell yourself and don't sell yourself short. So you want to talk about your degree. If you had some volunteer experience while you were in school that speaks to the job role, you want to mention it at this point. You want to mention the roles you have occupied in the past and what your contributions were in those roles. So this is an opportunity to first sell yourself, like tell them. So you want to, I didn't think you mentioned where you schooled. If your school is a great school only with your chest, I tell them, let them know you have a great education. You have an ACCA. You mentioned that briefly, but you want to say how you want to. When you mention some of these things, you also want to tell them how it has helped you become a better person as it relates to the job. So hype yourself. That's an opportunity for you to give all of the good things you have done in the past. Then I thought you had a lot of arms and arms and arms and arms. So I don't think that's a problem. I do that sometimes. But from feedback I've also gotten in the past, they said it's better to take pauses than to use a lot of arms and M's, but your pauses should not be too long. So when you are getting to that space where you want to do you may want to check that and take a comma, take a full stop there, and pick your conversation. You also, yes, want to, when Daily asks about this, what skills you think you have that makes you a good fit for this role. At this point, your skills are important, but you want to marry your skills with the skills for the role. So look out for the advert again when you have been invited for interview. Many adverts have what they want in terms of experience, in terms of technical skills, and in terms of soft skills. Your skills should be these skills. Like, you just have to find a way to marry it. So my emotional intelligence is high, blah blah blah, because that is what you have seen in the ad for the role. So you want to align your skills to those skills, not just, yes, personal skills are fine, but always align. Yeah. So when you were talking about giving deadlines, I wrote something here. I think you talked a little, when you were talking, you talked so much about personally you have done this, personally you have done this. Many leaders want to see that you're a good team player. So if you want to tone down on the personally, why it's good to mention your individual achievements, you also want to let them know that you thrive well as a team, because all organizations, whether you're a lone player, you still will need to collaborate with other departments. So you want to be seen as a good team player. Then small tip. And then we also were talking about your team. You said your current place of work, you are a small team. Your choice of word really matters. Even if you're a small team, don't let them know that you're a small team. Instead, describe with numbers. So we're a team of 2 people, and then you also want to call the roles, especially if they will help you. No, it's at this point people start looking at how big your current portfolio is. If I say I have 2 people report to me and one manages the reporting, blah blah blah, make their roles look big. You are not telling a lie, you are explaining what they do. So a team of 2 people, and talk about their designation so that they know that you serve an organ, and then it also helps when you come to your salary, the negotiation part. When you were talking about the organization RBC, so you were saying for them, for them, for them, for them, for them. For me, I got the feel that you were distant from the organization. This is an organization you want to work with. I'm not saying you should say for us now because you're not with them, but you might want to use maybe the organization instead of saying for them. It gave me an impression that it's me versus them. So you want to say. There have been an interview that I went to, and I think I was so passionate about it, and I said, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this. And some point I had to stop and apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm saying we. And then the lady said, oh, it already shows ownership. Whether that was Bobo or not, the lady thinks I'm already feeling like I'm part of the organization. So you don't want to say for them at least. So you want to say for the organization or for RBC, and not say for you, for them, for that. I'm just going through my notes. Then I asked the question about how you were able to move from FSCG to that, all of that. I was trying to give you an opportunity to talk about adaptation, flexibility, and innovation. For many organizations, innovation is a core value. They may not call it innovation, but at least be flexible, be able to, do things. So some questions are opportunity to see how aligned you are to the organization's culture. While we may not know the culture of this organization, there are some things that are cut across many organizations. So many people look out for integrity. It's in almost every organization I've known. They'll call it integrity or truthfulness or something around integrity. So you want to show this when you're giving your answer. You want to talk about innovation, like I said, your ability to be flexible. You also want to talk about people management skill. So when you were talking about difficult boss or people reporting to you, you should emphasize emotional intelligence, understanding people, and communication. If you know and communicate these 3 things, I think you can deal with even the most difficult people. Because like Dele said, knowing your people, understanding your people, no 2 persons are the same. So what works for A may not work for B. And when you want to motivate your team, knowing your people will even help you choose the right tool to motivate. There are some people you buy lunch for them and they don't like eating in a public place, for example. Or there are some colleagues I've never seen them eat, because for them that may not be a motivating factor. So you want to know what motivates your people and try to drive that. So you talk about your emotional intelligence, managing difficult boss. You have to understand what drives your boss, how you can help him leverage on his strengths and help him also work around his weaknesses. You're sure you're a great team player. Just Emotional intelligence, communication, and all of that. Yes. And as a Nigerian recruiter, there's something I picked from your CV that I think they will ask if they see that. So you had your ACCA in 2009, you had your degree in 2020, and you have had 6 years of experience. Is this 6 years of experience post-qualification experience, or how does that work? So that kind of question may come up, and you may need to have a convincing answer to drive that. A Nigerian recruiter would ask you that, I'm almost certain. So yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I think I've gone through the notes. So that's my feedback. But altogether, I think you did. Anyway.
Wow, Emeka, thank you for the feedback. I thank God someone recommended that we bring an HR person into it. I felt we didn't add as much value, but trust me, having you in this session was a blessing. I don't know if any other person felt the same way, but even me myself, I felt like, wow, it looks like I felt I've always been a star boy during interviews, but I think I have a lot of learning to do from feedback you're giving to Bolu. I did not expect that you have so much feedback to give, but it's good to know. I hope people have also learned as much or even more than I learned during the course of this interview. We thank Bolu for coming around for this interview. It was a blessing having him around because I think he really made it look very real and he brought his A game to this mock interview. I don't know if any other person has any question or any feedback for us before we end the session for today. And I thank everybody who has made our time for coming to join us. And it's a blessing having every single person here. I don't know you by name, I don't know you as much, but I really appreciate the fact that we are all here. For those who don't know about Accounting Yard, this is just a way to finally close this. Accounting Yard is a body of accountants, and we learn, we share, and we help, right? Because we understand there's a huge gap between the industry and what we learned in school. So we're trying to help every other person stay up the ladder so that we all improve and grow, right? Both in terms of skill sets, and we help improve our profession, right? For those who are interested in the Mini Accounting Academy, which is basically a platform to help young accountants, maybe you're the only accountant in your office or you're a fresh graduate, it's just a training that we organize, which is taking place in April to help young accounting professionals become better at what they do, right? So if you have friends who are interested, you can reach out to us, right, on our official number. And it was really nice having everybody. It was an hour, 15 minutes worth it. Every second was gold to me today. I think for me personally, I won't lie to you, I think this was better than our first session that we had. That one had its own strong points too, but I think this was a better session than the last one we had. So thank you, everybody. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah. Before we just go, let me just say one thing. Yeah, although it's not something that came out at the interview, it's about dressing. Maybe we'll talk about that much later. You want to dress appropriately and look confident in your dressing as well. So maybe some other time we'll do a little.
We'll dress that. Okay, don't worry. It was a mock interview, so the dress parts, we didn't insist on it. We just said at least just be fair enough so that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a mock interview. I shouldn't expect him to come, tie and jacket and all of that. But it's just good to also mention that from it's reflex. Although you're not supposed to do that, but people just create an impression or form an opinion about you from the way you are dressed. So people sit in front of you and you already have an opinion, and it takes a lot to erase that opinion if it's negative. So you don't want to start your interview on that. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Erika.
Okay,
I don't know if anybody has any
for the
question.
opportunity, Dele.
Thanks for the short notice, but still turning up to provide a plus performance here. So if any does it, this floor to open to everybody. Anybody have a feedback?
Hello.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm listening to you.
Somebody saying
okay.
Something.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was really an interesting one.
Yeah.
There's something I did not hear, and was expecting to for this interview to be based on that particularly. Let's say, for example, you are a finance manager in hospitality industry, and you got an interview somewhere else, manufacturing company, as also a finance manager. And there is always this, I call it a form of discrimination or a play down when it comes to salary, and they will say, since you do not have manufacturing experience, we are not going to pay you up to this or what you are expecting. You understand? How do we break, or how do we come in to, or to explain to them that no matter what the industry you are working from and the industry you are coming into, it is still the same accounting principle you are coming to apply, and also that should not affect your salary package. Because a good example was what happened to TY the other time, which I believe you were around when it happened. So I just want us to say something concerning that area, please.
Okay. So I'll come first. Let me say my own feedback as regards that. Now, to be very honest, training industry has own peculiarity, and I can tell you for certain, right? Yes, the accounting principles are the same, but industries have their peculiarity, right? And except that you found a way to understand what is required for those industry, it's still going to be a difficult thing to convince an interviewer, or because they've had experience in terms of recruiting people and those roles, right? It takes a lot to convince them, because trust me, whether I like it or not, I have experience in finance, in FMCG, for example. What is required or what is expected is a little bit different from the financial institution. I can adapt. So in that place, right, if I'm trying to negotiate fees, what I will try to make them understand is the fact that I can adapt and I'm innovative, right? So despite the fact that we don't have the exact industry experience, but over time, I develop skills that can make me adapt and innovate to be able to play into a new role without being very difficult. It's a difficult thing to sell, but if you are able to bring down those experience or those achievements that demonstrated in the past, that you can actually swim in sharks or swim in waters that contain sharks, you can overcome that challenge, right? That's how you can sell yourself to make them understand that, see, I am coming from this industry into this one. However, over the last 3 years, I developed skills that relate to this. I have done this relating to this industry, right? So for example, I explain to them the peculiarities of this new industry I'm coming into that I have an understanding of before I even get there. The moment I'm able to, except the person feels that I'm not giving the right responses to what is required from that industry, then it may be difficult for me to sell. But if I can demonstrate during the course of that interview that, see, I know that this industry is different, but these are the things I understand that are peculiar to these industries, and I understand it, right? It may not give me 100% guarantee that I can do it, but at least it gives me that this guy is already preparing himself for that role ahead. That's not the fact that he's not in that role. Do you get? I don't know if Bolu has anything to say, or Emeka or any other person, so they can continue.
I have something to say. Can I say something?
Yeah, sure, Jide, why not?
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe Emeka as a HR professional will be able to confirm this. So all what you said, I recognize and understand, and I'm not sure this word covers. It's called transferable skills. So okay. I think that's what you are referring to as transferable skills, where your experience, your skills, your knowledge of one job role or function is useful in another function or in another industry. However, like you said, the onus is now you to learn how to sell it and marry the two. So Emeka, can you confirm it's called transferable skills?
Yes. That's Jide. Was that Jide talking? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
was Jide talking.
Yeah. Jide, yes, absolutely. Transferable skills is something that is the in thing now. So you want to have transferable skills across industries, and then transferable skills across sub-function in a role. So in finance, you have tax and all of those regulatory things. You have internal control, you have corporate finance, you have budgeting and control, financial finance, all of it. So you want to have those skills within the function, and then skills across industries. But very importantly, you should research and communicate. Two things. So you want to let your interviewers know that what you are doing now, you are a guru, and where you are coming into, you understand how it operates. So they'll say that you are good currently and you are good for the future. Everything lies on research. So I'm in FMCG, if I'm coming to hospitality, then if you are using their terms at the interview session, so you're not using vague financial terms, but you're calling what hospitality calls this, it sends a signal. They just know that you are good here right now, and you understand what they currently do, and it puts you in a better position to negotiate or talk about money. But if you put doubt in their mind that, okay, yeah, we may be good where you're coming from, but you don't know what we do here, it may send the wrong signal. Yeah, transferable skills and then research. Like you can use their terms, use their words. So it's one thing to understand what they do, it's another thing to communicate in the industry language.
Okay. So Ola and Emeka have spoken well, but in addition to that, you also want to, at that point, use it as an opportunity to demonstrate how you've been flexible in the past. What have you done previously? For example, the fact that I moved from manufacturing to FSI, or if it may not necessarily be an industry switch for you, maybe even within the job. Maybe you used to do something before, and at some point you had to start doing something else within the organization. So that's the point where you would have, of course, you would have also prepared ahead of the interview. So you just need to have something handy to demonstrate how you, in your previous experience, shown flexibility and adaptability to new challenges. So that would improve your chances.
All right. So personally, I feel that I should even leave the window open to hear more questions, because it seems that the questions are helping us open things that will better help us prepare for interviews. Right. So I don't know if anybody has another technical question that will make us participate again. So I look forward to hearing from any other person. So any question?
I have a question.
Okay, Michael.
Yes, I have a question. Yes. Good evening. I really appreciate this section. It has really opened my eye to a lot of things. But one important question, should I say I have issues with when I'm in interviews? I know it was stated earlier, but I had network issues in between, so I did not get it clearly. Okay. About salary, salary expectation, and I want to know, as in, is there a ideal way to treat this, where they ask for my salary expectation, or they ask me where my salary from where I'm working currently, or where I've worked, if, for example, I'm out of job? How do I actually, because I feel personally that I should not tell them my salary, because that might make them downplay me. But how best can this come out?
Okay, so I'll give you a brief summary of what Emeka said, and also what I also said. So first, try to diplomatically not respond or provide a number, but if they insist, give them a range in which your lower range can be your current salary, and the upper range could be an expectation of what you expect to be, so that it doesn't become an integrity issue. Someone says that, but you told us this. So if they tell you to bring your pay slip, they can verify that, the amount you mentioned at the lower range matches exactly what's in your pay slip, right? It's a difficult thing to sell, salary negotiation. It's very difficult. It's not an easy process, really. Because one, for you to say on the move, there are two things. Most likely, obviously, you're looking for you to increase your earnings, right? Obviously, if someone is willing to offer you, for example, you're earning 100K and the person is willing to offer you 170, but you want the 250. So it's difficult to really tell the person, 250 and stand by it, because obviously you're in a case quite tricky position, because you don't want to sound desperate, but obviously someone adding the 70K to your current earnings, it's better than what you're currently earning. But another thing that I usually tell people is that if you're going to mention if you're going to negotiate salary, right? If someone is trying to negotiate you based on your current salary, try to explain to them. So, for example, it's possible that your current role, that salary you're earning now, has been what you've been earning since you got there. They've not increased salary, and you spend like 3 years there, right? So obviously, you're making them understand that, see, I'm earning this salary. However, I spent 3 years in this organization, right? And I've developed skills and competence that are of that current market value for such skill sets are what's this, right? If you don't, for example, maybe you join your current company and you're not chartered, you can mention the fact that you're now currently chartered. If you're not even chartered, we've moved from maybe foundation to, let's say, professional. Obviously, if there's an advancement in terms of skill set, if you've done courses that are going to bring value to that business, you talk about it. During the course of the interview, you need to sell yourself in terms of skill sets or things you've done, achievements that you think will bring value to the business. So you make them understand that, see, your current salary does not justify what you should earn, right? It's only historical. But however, you have skill sets that you believe the organization has, and you feel that what's this value to the business, right? But like I said, it's a tricky one. You have to be able to listen to your interviewer and respond politely and diplomatically when you are talking about salary. I don't know that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Kendi.
Hello.
Hi, Kendi.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dele. It has been an interesting discussion. I really enjoyed it. Well done. Okay, I have a question. Okay, in the course of one's career, there are some skills and functions you are made to, undertake. Maybe by virtue of you standing in for someone when he's on leave, not necessarily what the company actually employed you for.
Okay.
And you see a role, they advertise a role that, yes, you know how to do this thing, but it's not in line with, like, let me give a particular example. I've been a treasury person, for a while, and I'm also fast in export. I'm in trade finance, export and import thing, but not necessarily. I've not occupied the seat of export or import manager. But I say export and export manager in a very big company, and I feel like this is an opportunity for me to sort my shot and all that. How do you marry it together? That, okay, I've been a treasury person, I've been a finance person, but I want to take up an export. How do you convince the interviewer? Because ideally, most times when they see your designation and they're like, this one is a treasury person, let's move ahead. How do you manage this situation?
Okay. So I'll give my own perspective. I also here let Emeka give a perspective towards it. So typically, let's start.
I hope you got my question.
Yeah, I got your question. So before I get to the part of saying that, I'll start from the point before you applied. So first, then, before you applied for that role, you knew the role you're applying for. So first and foremost, my CV would have been tailored to meet what the expectation is. So clear cut, I'm a treasury manager, which is clear cut. However, I have competence that relates to that current role. So typically, I have like 4 or 5 versions of my CV, right? And I try to show that element of those additional things I've done. I'm not lying because purely I've done it. I've sat in that capacity because I interact and I've done work in that with that person's role, right? In my current role. But I clearly make it clear that this is not my primary function, it's my secondary function, but I've done this before. So in my CV, I structure it to reflect that element. Yeah. So at the point of application, I clearly make that known. Right. So if good enough, if I structure my CV well and it's clear enough, then they're able to call me to come for the interview. Right? Then during the course of the interview, I'm able to demonstrate and provide proper insights into how I've gained skill sets relating to that role, despite the fact that that's my primary function. Okay. So I think you want to say something, so maybe we can also add to what we just said.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dele. So in addition to that, so like we said earlier, where I asked for clarity with Emeka, So it's a transferable skill you have. So even though you've not occupied that position, but by virtue of your experience or studies or education or whatnot, you have that skill, you gain that skill, you own that skill. So like I'll make reference to what Emeka said. You need to find out how to link, tailor, and merge, your current knowledge of that experience, that's a trade, with your treasury that you are coming from, so that you can convince the recruiter that, okay, even though you've never been in a direct trade function and you're coming from a treasury function, you understand the nuances, what is required, and that you have the skills needed to succeed in that role. So that's what I think you can add to it to help you.
Okay, thank you very much. That actually answered my question.
Okay, Emeka wants to say something.
Can I say something briefly to add to what
the VIP.
Yeah, the way it is now, CVs are very dynamic. You shouldn't have one CV for all the roles you are applying for. And like I said earlier, you'll see specific skill for roles advertised in the job ad. You want to edit your CV, and it's not an integrity issue. As long as you have those skills, you want to edit your CV to capture the requirements for the role. So let's job titles can be limiting. So you might be called one thing in this organization, and it captures way more than what it is in another organization. For example, somebody asks, you're a talent acquisition specialist, or a talent acquisition manager. Looking at the nomenclature designation, it looks limiting. You only do probably talent acquisition. But if you see the JD of that role, it could include performance management, for example. It could include reward and recognition. It could include learning and development. For your job title or designation, you just call your current role does not speak to the exact role being advertised for. You want to have your heading as finance professional or finance accountant or finance. So is a generic name for all of the finance. When you are specifying you do. So, for example, if you take my strategy, talent management, performance management, and then blah, 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 blah. Then when you are doing your summary, make sure you count the requirements of a particular role. So I'm an HR professional with experience in import and exports, because that is the role, right? etc., experience in FMCG and all of that. More so, if you did this role for 6 months, it can be taken as, what's the word now? I'm trying to get the right word. You can own the role as you were. So you can put acting and mention the role if it's at least 6 months straight, not less than 6 months. So I can put acting, export, import, manager, whatever you want to call it. If I sat on that role for at least 6 months, let's say the person went on a sabbatical, the person was away for 6 months, and I did that role continuously for 6 months. There's nothing wrong in putting that on your CV. But if it's less than 6 months, you can still put your current role, but make sure you capture the requirements of that role when you're doing your career summary, your skills requirement, and let your heading speak generically to role. I think that will.
All right. Thanks, Emeka, again, once again, for your Super B or Super A performance.
Thank you so much.
All right, Candy. Thanks. I want to address your question. I don't know if there's any other question, so that we can call it a day. Okay. In the absence.
Hello.
Oh, people don't want to.
Hello. Sorry. Hello.
People don't want us to listen. Yeah.
Hello. So okay, I want to ask this question. Okay. At the end of each interview you attend, they will ask you, do you have any question for the interviewer? Okay. I've had calls to ask some questions, and the interviewer will be like, why is he asking me this kind of technical question? Okay, for example, I attended an interview, and I was asking the interviewer, okay, can you give me a brief of your turnover your yearly turnover, and like, and I feel like, so you were just parabolating. So my question is there any limit to what question you should ask the interviewer, even when you give you the opportunity to ask questions?
Okay. So
did you get my question?
Answer. So personally, this is my approach to it. There was a point during the course of this mock interview, we mentioned about research of the organization and all, right? As much as possible, I don't know if there's a limit, but I try to ensure that my questions are technical and are relevant to the role I intend occupying and the people that are sitting with me. So for example, I ask myself, what will me knowing the turnover of the business, what will it help me achieve? I doubt it will help me achieve anything really sensitive, really. So I'll most likely ask them a question like, what are the existing challenges the business is having? And what do you hope the person who's coming to occupy this role will help them achieve, right? Is a question relevant to the current role which I'm applying for and sees that I have an interest in the business, right? Or I consider something relevant. So for example, the new Finance Act, I'm saying that how are they trying to ensure that they are compliant with the new Finance Act, right? So that they're not exposed from a regulatory point of view. I'm asking a question that is relevant to them and how they're adapting to it. Do you get? Or I can ask them, have they filed their annual returns? So maybe it's a period during the period where people business are already filing their annual returns with the tax authority. So I ask them, for example, have they filed their returns, maybe their annual pay return for relevant state authority, or have they filed their audited financial statements with the FRS? Do you understand? So I don't think there's a limit, but I try to ensure that the question I'm asking, one, it ensures that it's addressing something critical as regards to the role I'm applying for. Or another question I could ask is, I can be interested in the interviewer. So I ask a question about the interviewer and how that person, so for example, how has the person been able to adapt to working in that business? Or what does the person feel is the greatest challenge working in that environment? Or what the person think are the challenges for a new person joining the business? That you think, if I'm joining the business, that's the kind of challenge I will face. And what advice will you advise me ahead of my joining them, right? Those are the kind of questions I would ask, and I ensure that I am hitting the nail on the head, right? Emeka, I don't know if you have any contribution to this question.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think you captured it completely. Just to add a few things. See, when you are given an opportunity to ask questions, okay, before we go further, let me even apologize on behalf of that recruiter. Because for me, even when you ask some questions I think are inappropriate, as much as possible, I try to answer. Even if I don't give the specific answer, I try to answer and not make the person look stupid or make them look uncomfortable. That being said, it's not compulsory you ask a question. I don't think it would be a problem if you don't. However, you can use the opportunity to further sell yourself. And the question you should ask is, what value will this question ask? I've had people ask questions because they've been told that they must ask a question when they say, do you have any questions for us? No, you don't. So what value does the question have? What does it speak? Does it send a message that you're interested in the organization? Does it send a message that I, as the employee, am interested in working in the organization? Does it also send a message to understanding what the culture of the organization, what the role entails, what value you can add to the organization? Usually, the general principle is to avoid questions that reeks of desperation. Avoid questions that addresses questions that speaks to integrity issues. So how do I mean? You may want to ask. I'm trying to get an example so that I put things in perspective. I was actually on Twitter today, and there's this guy that I followed that gave an example. So if he has asked, for example, do you do background checks? Right. It may not be the reason you are asking, but it could send a signal that you're afraid of background checks, right? Or desperation. How you can say, instead of asking how soon am I going to hear from you, for example, instead of talking about desperation rather, you can say, what are the next stages in the process? So you're asking the same question, but you're choosing the right words. So if the financial books of the company will not add any value, I don't think you should ask. So you may want to even prepare your questions before you come, questions that will add value, or you may even get a question while the interview is going on. So you just keep that. And you may ask more than one question, but please don't ask more than 3 questions. Usually that is the way.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Emeka.
Thank you very much.
I guess there was someone trying to ask a question. I can't find the person again. All right. Okay, Dixon. Dixon, you want to say something, Dixon Obi?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks. You're welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure, we can.
All right. Yeah, please, I just want to ask a question. Like, I know I've read in books that say that most times in interview, we need to tailor our answering of questions to scenarios. So what if, for instance, now you have not yet done a particular kind of job, and then you are asked a question that a particular activity, and you ask a question, and you're expected to give a scenario. How do you create a scenario? Like, and the way you can just give an idea on how you can form a scenario around answering such kind of question that you have not, in a situation where you have not engaged in that activity before. Like maybe an experience, for instance, and they can ask you that, okay, how have you been able to handle have you been able to handle a situation in this kind of scenario? But in your past, you may not have encountered or have that kind of experience. So how do you go about answering such questions?
Okay, so I'll start again, then I'll let Erika come in. So personally, the truth is, they say, how do you say that thing in business law? You can't give what you don't have. If you don't have it, you can't give it, right? So like, if you notice, the post around this training talked about the fact that interviewing is a skill, and you need to develop those skills, right? So for example, I know that we created a workbook that's trying to put generic questions that come up during interviews so that we help people prepare. So if, for example, if you've not thought about it before and it comes up, there's a probability that if you've not been in that scenario and you cannot think on top of your feet, you may not be able to answer that question at that point in time. So there's no magic to it, right? The only way you can answer that kind of question is, for one example, you've experienced it before, or you've had a discussion, or someone has talked to you about it before, right? Or you're smart enough to be able to create a scenario, right, within that short space of time. But like you said, experience is the best teacher. If you've not had it before, you can't just create something out of it. But if you've been attending interviews, over time, you've developed confidence that can enable you think through and build up a scenario of what you've experienced before to address that question, right? It happens. And for me, it's not compulsory that all the questions during the interview is answered. Say, sorry, I don't have experience based on this particular scenario. I've not experienced such before, right? It may lower you mark, but you can be sincere enough to say, or you can tell them, you can throw it back to them and say, oh, if they're in my shoes, how would they answer this particular question? Or what scenario have they been faced about it? It shows the fact that you don't have that experience, but you're willing to learn, right? And that could be a selling point if you're unable to answer the question at that point in time. Nobody scores 100 of 100 in any exam, right? I don't know if you has anything to say.
Yeah, thank you, Dele. Yeah, it was something I missed when we concluded the mock interview. I wrote that, but I don't know why I missed it. So I think I asked some questions around situations and how, okay, difficult boss, difficult team. And then when he was giving the answer, he did not personalize the situation. It's okay if you have not had any experience in that regard. But like Dele said, the ability to think on your feet. That being said, you should, as much as possible, be truthful, be honest about your experiences, because some of these things can be verified. The ability to think on your feet is very important, because no two interviews go the same way. So every situational question has what they are looking out for. So you may want to know what they are looking out for. So ability to work in a team. If you know, if you can get the key points from that, you will know how to tell your question. So when we're talking about how you manage difficult direct reports or difficult boss, you want to say that you have emotional intelligence, you have great communication, and then you understand people. So when you are giving your scenario, it's okay to tell them that, okay, take it put in perspective. If they say, how have you dealt with a difficult boss, and you have not really dealt with a difficult boss, but I doubt that. You can say, yes, you work with a lot of people, and understanding them is very important to move forward. So you want to give an answer to the core of the question and not just tell a story. You can even tell a story even if you have been in that situation and still not answer the core of the question. So importantly, understand the core of the question and give a scenario and answer that speaks to the core of the question. It could be a real life situation. Even if you are given an hypothetical situation, try as much as possible to not say it has happened. So you can say, okay, there was a time people had to manage a difficult boss, not I have to manage a difficult boss. So you can use the second person pronoun, third person pronoun, and not make it seem like you were in that situation when you are not in that situation. Basically, so find what the question needs to answer and give your reply around that so that you don't even miss out on the question in the first place.
All right. Thanks, Emeka.
Thanks, Emeka. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for the question, Dixon. Any other question? So this officially makes it about 2 hours we've been on discussing interviewing. I hope you have learned as much as I've learned. And I hope we're able to share knowledge with everybody. We hope to hear good news in terms of people being able to apply what they've learned so far in their next opportunity. We look forward to hearing good news from fellow members of our accounting yard and those who are first-timers with us to hear good news about their new roles. All the best. Happy New Year, everyone. This is the first webinar for 2021. All the best in your current roles and future roles. Thank you. Thank you once again, Emeka. Do have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye. Have a lovely weekend.